The origins of Desperation Conference are in prayer meetings. 2001, it was every week, 6 2-hour prayer meetings with young people in the World Prayer Center Chapel, just crying out to God in really desperate prayer. My wife, Renata, said we should call the conference Desperation because that embodies what we see in these kids. They're just hungry and desperate for God. And so that summer, we put it on the calendar, August 2nd and 3rd.
I remember that we had no real grid on who was gonna show up, if anyone was gonna show up. We had no idea what was gonna happen.
We just thought if we can gather for a few days and chase that, it'd be significant.
We expected to just have a handful of kids, like hoping to fill it up some, have some chairs, but so many came that we had to take out all the chairs. We could hardly fit everybody in. They're all seated on the floor. And then John and Glenn and Jared began to lead worship, and it was anointed.
Man, there was just hunger in the room. There was hunger for the Lord that wasn't planned. It was spontaneous in a lot of ways.
And there was no reason for them to be drawn. There was no big name. There was no flashy kind of program. We just prayed and fasted.
This started as a prayer movement. This started at key points of leaders, young people, whether it was 24-hour prayer meetings or multiple prayer meetings throughout the week, saying, Lord, take our strategies, take our talents, take our lights, our smoke, our creativity, take our natural and put your super on it and do it as we cry out to you from the place of prayer.
We wanted it to be a movement, but how do you call something a movement when it's only lasted a couple of years?
Desperation is actually a sacred assembly. Kids come from all over the country because they're serious about pursuing the Lord.
This is what it looks like for a group of people to hunger and thirst for something far greater than themselves.
There's stories of people that have encountered Jesus because people at Desperation had an encounter with Jesus. And there are stories of prayer groups and prayer meetings that have started and people that are going to those that they never stepped foot in Colorado Springs, but because someone met the Lord in a place of prayer and worship at Desperation, they went home and they started a prayer meeting or they did something like that.
Because students, the thousands that were here in the room, as they're listening to these stories, they're like, oh, I can do that too. Like maybe I should start a prayer meeting on my high school or my junior high campus. Or maybe I should actually pray for someone in the middle of the grocery store or in the lunchroom.
In this room, God has spoken and assigned and sent out pastors and missionaries and leaders, business people. God uses these 3 days to deeply imprint His calling on the lives of students. And I think that's what is remarkable about Desperation.
We had wildfires literally ripping through our city the day before a conference, and people still showed up. I remember we went through rough seasons in our own church, and people still showed up. I remember when Aaron and his team had a few months to put it together, and people still showed up. So there's a wildness to Desperation, and just a radical nature to it that people would show up. And that's a testament to the faithfulness of God's people, yes, but it's just the faithfulness of God.
Despite your denomination, despite the city you come from, despite the church that you're a part of, despite the struggles that you have in life, that every summer I get to see the greater body of Christ at work.
We're here right now getting to watch still God take a space in the lives of young people and transform them.
As much as we've all had our hands as a part of it, the Lord is the one who's been writing it. And so it's a story of His faithfulness and the story of His goodness and story of Him going, there's a generation that is to come that will be impacted by this.
You are part of something, of a great cloud of witnesses who have gone before you for 20 years.
And I think that what we've seen is this continual movement that God has used to work in the lives of young people.
My prayer, my desire, what I'd love to see is that God would continue to honor even the prayers not just of current, but the prayers that started a couple decades ago of, Lord, may you always keep your hand on this conference. May you always show up in such an extraordinary way, pouring out your love, breaking chains of bondage, bringing freedom to a generation of young people, that they would know that they are called to live in desperate pursuit of you.
We have a bunch of Moses-type characters who kind of hold up the staff, right? The walking staff, which David and Renata Perkins with the vision and the heart to start this thing. I mean, we were all kind of just drafting behind them for this, and Dan and Amy Perkins, Brandon and Octavia, David and Sarah, Aaron and Chelsea, Tim and Mariah, taking it to the next generation. Those are the people. Those are, God's faithful people to hold up the stick, the pole, and see God do extraordinary things over the years.
A lot of people can start something, but only God can take it to completion. And I believe that 20 years is proof positive that this has been designed by God. This is a movement of God. This is something that God started here and that God continuing here. You can't keep up something for 20 years in your own strength. 20 years means that God has put his hand on this and has sustained it and kept it going.
We've just seen God be so faithful in the past, and we're confident that with every personality, every speaker, every kid, every youth pastor, every local church, that for years to come, God is using desperation to reach a generation in desperate pursuit of God.